Okay, in this next video, we are going to go over the following. How do you create 1000 PSHELL entries? So let me do this. Let me go ahead and take one of these existing PSHELL entries. And let me show you what it looks like here. Now, typically you use spaces to separate all these different values, if you will. This is going to be field 1, field 2, field 3, which is the material ID, field 4, which is the thickness, and then this is a different material ID. Maybe I'll skip that one for this tutorial, or maybe I'll leave it. Now, an alternative method for defining these entries is the so-called free field format. So in the free field format, so let me go ahead and type that in. What the free field format does, it uses commas instead of spaces to separate your values. So here what I'm doing now, I'm converting this to the free field format. I'm using commas instead of spaces. Now, this PSHELL entry spans only one row. There are entries that might span multiple rows. So let me find you an example. So the DV Pro 1 entry is one example of this. Let's go ahead and find it. So here's an entry that spans 2 rows. Now, what will you do here? It's the same as before. You will use commas to separate your different values. And you can even leave the spaces there like I'm doing here. Now, this is valid. So if you run this with Nastran, it should run okay. Now, why am I using commas instead? This is why. Let's go ahead and save this as a CSV file. So here, let's go ahead and see if I have it here. I'll just select all types. So test data or test PSHELLs.csv. What's important, you use .csv. Now what I can do for that CSV file, I can go ahead and open it in Excel. And here I can go ahead and now use Excel to duplicate that one PSHELL entry multiple times. So let's go ahead and drag that down to maybe row 1000. So let's go up to, let's see, where was I? Row 1000. Here. Now, the next thing is the entry ID. I believe here all you need to do is double click, or actually hold the control key, then double click. Oh, now it doesn't want to work. Let me see if I can do this. Okay, so it seems that first hold the control key, drag down a little, then double click, and now increment the ID by 1. So now I have IDs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on and so on. Now for the material ID, just double click this one time. I'll use the same material ID. Now for the thickness, just double click that or modify it to your liking, and then we'll do that for the next column. Now, one very important thing to note, let's suppose the thickness was 1, and now I'm using 1. This is going to cause an error with Nastran. Why? This is an integer. This is a real type. Notice that the one difference between both of these is that in the second value, we use a decimal point. Nastran, when it reads this data, it reads integers differently than real numbers. So if we go back here and we save the CSV file, let's go back here and look at this new CSV file. You'll notice that for the thickness, I'm using an integer of 1. Nastran is going to fail with that. So actually, let's do this. Let me see if it's possible here. Let me pause the video for a quick moment. Okay, well, the reason I paused for a moment, I wanted to get a bulk data file to test with. Now, here, what I'm going to do is the following. Let me copy this to this bulk data file. We want to run Nastran to make sure that these entries run okay. So let me look for the old PSHELL entries, which are here. So let's go ahead and delete these old ones. Let's go ahead and add the new PSHELL entries. And remember, we've just created 1000 PSHELL entries. Let's go ahead and save this. And now let's try and run Nastran. Now remember, we have a problem here. We're using integers for the thickness, but we should be using real types. If we look at the F06 file, I expect there to be many errors. So here, let's read the error. T, the thickness, which is currently set to 1, is an integer in a real field. That's a problem. So here in Excel, what we can do, we can right-click on the column, and there should be a formatting option here somewhere. Let me see if I can find that. I'm losing my bearings here. Let me see where is that formatting option? Oh, here. It's been a long day, so I'm just trying to finish on a good note. Here, you would go ahead and maybe use the number option. Here you can specify the number of decimal points. Here we use 2. Alternatively, you can use the scientific option, and that's just as valid. Here, let's go ahead and save the CSV file. And if we look back at the CSV file, now we're using, how do I say, a real type for this. Now, one very important thing here, let's go ahead and modify one thing here. I don't know if it's possible. Depending on what you want, you should at most use 8 characters per field. So here it's 3, it's 1 character, 3 characters, but here we have 9 characters. That's a problem. Here, I believe if I try and use these PSHELL entries, it's not going to work. That's because that thickness value, the number of characters exceeds 8 characters, which is a problem. So here, let's try and run that. And let's go ahead and look at the latest error if there is one. Oh, interesting. Oh, actually, I'm not sure if it did work. Let's see if it did work. Fatal. And let's go and see if we get some results here. Oh, it looks like it did work. I was not expecting that to work. Most of the time, if you use the small field format or the free field format, with the small field format, you can at most use 8 characters. If you count here the number of characters, you have, oh, here, I made a mistake. This is exactly 8 characters, so that's why we didn't have the error. Now, let me see. I'll leave it there. But just in case you have a value that's longer than 8 characters, one alternative is to use this, the large field format. So what I'm going to do to each row, I'm going to insert an asterisk in field 1. And we'll save that. This is now using the large field format. This will let you use up to 16 characters for each field. So here, if I type in additional zeros, Nastran will be completely okay with that. Actually, let me show you the change. So let me do this. Let me add additional zeros. So that value, that field is using more than 8 characters. Let's go ahead and run Nastran, and we'll see if this gives me an error. I expect it to, but you never know. Let me go ahead and open the F06 file. And once again, it's running. Here, let me try and force the error. I want this to fail for this tutorial. And it's going to rerun this. And let's see if that worked. And it seems it still worked. Okay, that's interesting. Fatal. Right, it still worked. Okay, so I'll say this again. Eventually, you will get to a moment where Nastran doesn't let you or it fails because you use a value longer than 8 characters. The alternative is to use this, the large field format. So this involves using the asterisk like I showed a moment ago. So here's that asterisk. We added it to every row in field 1. And then let's do a confirmation. Here we'll say sort PSHELL. Here what I'm saying is take the PSHELL entries echo that data, repeat that data into the F06 file. So here, let's go ahead and rerun Nastran. Click run. And let's go ahead and look at the result. So now if you scroll down a little, you get this section, sorted bulk data echo. This is going to show you what the output of those PSHELL entries look like. You'll notice one thing. Here, even though we formatted this using commas or the free field format, Nastran's file reader has converted that to a format that does not use commas. It uses spaces. So that's what Nastran is looking at now. Now this echo is useful for development purposes. You can make sure that your data is being supplied properly. So that's part of the reason why I like to use it. But in most cases, maybe you don't really need to. Now let me try one other thing here. Let me see if this will work. Well, I'll skip that. Okay, let me go back to the original question. How do you create 1000 PSHELL entries? So what we did here was we took the original PSHELL entry that was formatted with spaces, and then we inserted commas. Once we used commas, we saved the file to a CSV file. And we opened it in Excel, and then we used Excel to create clones or duplicates of that one PSHELL entry. We made sure the IDs were different. We made sure that the thickness values were different. We made sure that we use a decimal point. So we're using a real type instead of an integer. We save that file. And then we copied the new PSHELL entries. We saved it over here. We ran Nastran to make sure that it runs okay and things look okay. So that's how you do it. That's how you create 1000 PSHELL entries with the commas. Thank you for watching.